Right now, we are live.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you everyone for joining us for another episode at Lightworkers Secrets to Success. We have the pleasure of interviewing my good friend Stephanie Huber tonight.
Right.
I hear some background noise. Did you guys hear that?
That was me just going live, so you're good.
Okay. I'm like, oh gosh. I thought it was, but I just wanted to make sure. So anyways, Stephanie and I have been working together for several years in different adventures, and we met each other about 4 years ago, and both kind of went down this journey of wanting to help people and help people in addiction and what that may look like. So previous to we were in an online community that helped us achieve the goals that we set out for. And when we first started, we weren't even thinking about energy healing or anything down that line at all. We were studying the book Think and Grow Rich, and we were learning the principles in that book by Napoleon Hill. And as we were doing blueprints and our vision got different every time we did that exercise. And so as our journey kept rolling, it just kind of fell into our laps. And I think we both had an interest in it. And then you and I, Stephanie, were in a mastermind together, and we're like, let's just do it together. So we just kind of developed this. So we just kind of developed what we've been doing. We've created a lot of, I call them divine protocols. We kind of pray over some of these protocols that we want, and we just get them. And so it's really cool. So we have a weekly energy clearing that we do once a week with people in addiction. We do that for free, and that is just by proxy. And you just give us your name and give us permission, and we work on you for free. And then we just started a YouTube channel, and we're really excited for that. And so that's what we are going to talk to Stephanie about today. But first, we're going to have her let us know a little bit of her background and how she herself has an interest in addiction and how she got into energy healing. So thank you, Stephanie.
You are welcome. Well, I'm happy to be here, you guys. This is awesome. You know, it's funny because you think about where did the beginning actually happen, you know, as far as me heading down this path. Well, of course, you know, personal experiences with my family, that's where it started. And you want to help. You want to find a way to help. And I remember thinking for one of my family members that, gosh, you know, the normal path for helping people in addiction is more of, you know, you have to do this step and this step, you know, or go to a center or, you know, whatever it is, spend your certain amount of time. And then, of course, when they leave, nothing happened, you know. It may have did why they were there, but nothing really happened. And so it would really, really bother me. So it got me thinking. And that's where those blueprints that Amanda is talking about, you know, we start to talk about that kind of thing. And you would start to see some of these patterns of like, wow, wonder what we should do because we know that this doesn't work. So we would really kind of study that a little bit, you know, try to figure out what does work, what doesn't work. And honestly, this is very much a work in progress still because, you know, finding that I guess, so to speak, secret sauce of what it really is to help these people, you know, and really get them out of what it is that they want out of, but they struggle so much to do it. It's it's a process. So I think with that, knowing, you know, just my, you know, background with that, you know, and talking to so many different friends, and now I have people that contact me all the time. They're always saying, hey, Steph, you know, I know you do stuff with addiction or you talk to people with addiction. They know or they've heard something in that line. And I'm like, well, yeah, what's going on? So, I mean, it really has started to morph into something that I feel like, you know, that I could really do some good in this world. So that in turn led me into like, what are these modalities that people use, you know? I mean, what do they do? What can help, you know? And I think that some of them I've tried, and I wasn't really sure that that was a good thing or would really work, or I was getting enough of a response from a person. But the emotion code is kind of where I sort of settled in, and I'm still working on my practitioner for that. But that is the one area that I felt like, you know, would really help. So I have been using that, you know, and working with people and trying to go back in their lives and finding so many patterns with people, you know, as far as, for instance, you know, a lot of dads are an issue in these people's lives, you know, and you're like going, why so many? I mean, how does this work like that? So there's just certain similarities with a lot of addiction, and it doesn't matter what the addiction is. It's just that there's a lot of similarities in what happens in their early childhood that brings them to kind of where they are now. So trying to heal some of that is really what I'm looking forward to do, you know, because I think that all of them would love to be completely done with that in their life and, you know, move on to greater things, because we all have, you know, life that we want to do. And as you said, we've been working on blueprints, trying to make our lives the life that we want. And I know they're like that too. So it's exciting. And I have a heart for those that are, you know, they struggle, and I don't want them to struggle. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's where it's led me to.
Well, I love it. And you know I do, because I'm one of your biggest supporters, your biggest fan. And you were talking about so many things were going through my brain. But now they've all kind of floated away. So what would it take for you to get your practitioner in emotion code?
That was more of a financial type commitment, and one that I'm still working to gather enough of that, because I've got a lot of case studies. I can tell you that. Yeah. So I'm there with that. I've been practicing for quite a long time. So it was more of a financial, you know, trying to make sure I had the money that I need to do that. And I'm about halfway there. Good. So it shouldn't take, you know, much longer before I actually have that.
And right now, are you practicing to where people are like maybe giving you a donation for your services right now, just to kind of help you get that piece going?
Yes, and most of them are really willing to go like half of where I am. So they're all willing to do that, and they're excited to have the help, and they like the, you know, and as all of you know, because I know all of you. You know, I mean, it's something where when you are working with people and you just get those downloads, they just start happening, and it leads you in a path that, you know, you might not have thought you were going to go, but you do. And that person is so blessed for what you just shared with them. And it just leads to more and more. So yeah, they're more than happy to, you know, help out, and they want to see the success because they have so many people in their lives that they want to help too. So I think it's something that eventually I think a lot of people would want to pay it forward.
For sure. And like you said, we started at first, we knew we had to do this, right? We knew we had to help people. We didn't really know what that looked like. We didn't know what kind of modality we were going to use. So we just started practicing. And as we have one, then we're like, oh, and what about this? And what about that one? And what about this one? So we just start like, you know, having so many different things in our toolbox, which is great. And I know like for Colette, she talked about access consciousness bars, and I became a practitioner. And Stephanie was going to do the class with me a couple weeks ago, but it was snowing and the pass was closed. And I was like, dang it.
It's something I would be really interested in for sure, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really awesome.
I do think there's a lot of pieces and a lot of different, well, for instance, there's different doctors that do different things. There's some that I like to follow, and I can't remember the one I'm thinking about. Sorry, I'm terrible with names, but I do remember that you read some of their work that they've done and you're like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm not bashful. I pull something out like that and I will use it in what I'm doing and really see where it goes, because I think it's important. So many people have done a lot of work, a lot of legwork to help, and there's just really, I think that we should be sharing and paying it forward. And you know what, maybe there's something that comes from this that's way bigger than every single thing that's been out there. That's how I see it. I'm a more of a big picture, like, oh, we'll see where that goes.
I think so too. And I think that, our goal, our big vision that you and I've created is opening up a holistic healing center. And that's why we started going into these different modalities. Like, which ones are the most important? If we need like just a couple, which ones do we need the most of? And that's when we started this journey on, digging into these other modalities and other healing options for people. One of the things is I would love, love, love to be attracting people that are already working in facilities like that, or people who are working with people with mental health issues, and saying, hey, there may be something else that we can kind of release to get them some more relief, instead of just like giving them the conventional like medication and those kind of things. So I mean, I really can envision that. And if we could just get a couple people, and like we all know that when we heal ourselves, we can heal 350,000 people at the same time just by healing one person. So if we can do that, it's going to just be this ripple effect, and it's just going to go globally, and that's my vision.
Right. I think
So
oh, go ahead, Amanda. Sorry.
no, it's okay. Go ahead.
Well, the other thing I was just going to mention is that, I know there's that part of it, but there are some few things that are really conventional that I think are really important, like, and it's part of my health background is, having people, when you have people that are in addiction, their bodies they're just not doing well. So helping them nutritionally, getting them back on their feet with that, and vitamins and things like that, and exercise, and, maybe meditation, there's so much on that line of it that's really helpful too. And then of course, all the, the head things that are happening in their lives that just mess them up. But yeah, that's all I wanted to mention about that, because I think it's important.
It is important for sure. And with your health background, because you are a health and wellness coach, you do help people get, their lives back on track with eating and proper diet and things like that.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Stephanie? I know.
You're funny. You get us a good team. I was just thinking, I know because I've worked with you guys a few times with other people, and is there any one person that stands out right now? Because I know it's still early on, so this may be an unfair question, but any one person that stands out early on that you saw success with right away?
I don't know if I could answer that and say an absolute yes, like right away, because it did take a few times with some of these people, because there's so much entangled into it. Relief, I would say yes. They get a sense of relief before we ever got off the phone with them. They're saying, oh my gosh, I feel so much lighter. I feel so much better, but then it could be the very next day that they picked up that thing again in their life, and they're right back to where they were. So it does take some work that and it takes consistent work. I mean, you really do have to take what you just had and what was released and you're done with, and move on with it. And we've learned so much of that with, a lot of our thinking.
But like you said, because sometimes people measure success as, okay, they're healed and they're done, but sometimes success is in small increments.
It is.
And if you can see, especially anybody with any kind of addiction, you see that, and you see even a small, glimpse of something, that's a success story, right?
I agree. I do agree. And that's what I was saying, is that I do definitely feel like people get a sense of relief before we ever get off of a call, and they're just happy to have been a part of it. And a lot of times there's, a few ahas for them where they're like, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't realize that would have affected it, but it does. So yeah, absolutely.
I remember, just to answer your question, Pamela, Stephanie and I were working with a gal that was referred to us. Neither of us knew her. But, we asked her because we see similarities in some of these things. A lot of times there's, like she said, like the dad isn't there. Or it could be a negative influence in their life, or there's usually some kind of sexual trauma. Those are the two main things that we see over and over and over again. And we kept asking her, so, we always ask everybody, like, tell us a little bit about yourself, like, give us your story, and this one gal, she's just like, yeah, no, I had a perfect childhood. I mean, everything was great, loving parents. And I know I'm thinking and Stephanie's thinking, and we're like, okay, so what are we missing? Like, and she had been on drugs for a really long time. So harsher drugs, I think it was like meth, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden we started working on her. And both of us got the divine download that there had been some sexual trauma. Now, I can't remember right offhand, like who this person was, but it could have been a close family member. I don't know, an uncle or somebody close to the family.
Uncle, if I remember right.
I think so, yeah. And then all of a sudden it just dawned on her. She was like, oh, yes. And it was like, okay, that makes sense. Okay, at least, because we're like, well, wait, everything was great. Then and she couldn't remember. And so, sometimes with our subconscious, we block things out for our own protection, right? And so sometimes when we're talking to people, they don't always remember. And that goes to show when people are in the conventional treatment, and I don't want to say anything bad about those treatment centers, but I want to say that sometimes they miss the mark in some things. Because if you're asking people like, well, what happened? And you're saying, well, I had this awesome childhood and I had all this stuff. And, and then that's your story. How can you dig into that subconscious if you don't know how? Right. And so I think like the work that all of us do here as energy workers it's just so important, helping others kind of unlock that subconscious mind.
I would agree.
I think you hit it on the head, is that the number one function of the subconscious is to protect you, to keep you safe. That's
right.
the number one thing that the subconscious does. So whatever causes you pain, it does as much as it can do to get away from pain, and it'll block anything and everything that it has to. So, when you're able to uncover that, then you can really start to peel that onion layer back a little bit by a little bit.
Right.
Stephanie, what if you have someone that is an alcoholic? Because you can see it, but they can't see it yet. How do you kind of handle something like that?
I'm actually working with a few of them like that right now. And it's challenging, Adam. It really is, because at the same time, the one thing I notice is they want to isolate right away. So they isolate from everybody, cut off everybody that they possibly can cut off. And sometimes, like I said, I'm not bashful in a lot of ways. I will go around and there's different people that, I know will, talk to these people, and you just have to really find the right person that's going to be able to talk to them, especially if I happen to have a very personal story with this, and I'm not able to speak to this person. So it is something that I absolutely can see what's going on, and I have to use different ways to get around to him. But it really is, you just have to start peeling back those layers, and if it wasn't this person, it was somebody I didn't know, I would definitely try to just, work on peeling back the layers and trying to get to the bottom of, at least the start or the beginning, and finding out, the childhood history, because I think that that's where it begins. It has in so many different cases. Getting to that point and getting the openness, and the trust. This person absolutely has to trust you, or they will not tell you a thing. So, and I'm very, very happy that people will allow me to speak in their lives like that. So, being able to do that and get back to that very beginning and then start working forward from there. If I can get to there, I just had another gal that I was working with the other day, and I've been working with her for probably 4 or 5 months. And I just found out some things that I never had gotten to before. But it was through a process of working through some of those layers that happened to just open this door. So it's a commitment and a time with these people, and just a love to try to help them, and being willing to peel back the layers and working on it with them. And like I said, if you have the trust, I think that they will do really anything. I don't
Yeah.
know if that answered your question, but
Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, it might be a little bit easier if they're not friends, or if they're not family, or if they're not, if you're not, dating the person or married to the person, and you
Yeah.
can see it, right? So to have that conversation with someone who might be a complete stranger, or someone that you kind of know, and working with them, because then they know that you have their best interest at heart. But when you're directly related to, like, as example, my dad and my ex-girlfriend, having conversations with them about it, it's just they don't want to admit it, even though I can clearly see it. The amount of alcohol that gets drank between either one of them was just an enormous amount. And if I would just ask them, well, why don't you not have a drink for one day? Can you do it?
right.
Yeah, I can, but I don't need to. Well, that's the definition of an alcoholic. If you can and you choose not to, you're saying that you really can't do it, right? And they don't even recognize that it's a problem at that point. How do you recommend having a conversation with someone like that?
There are times, I think, that a person, if you're not ever going to be able to get through that person with what they're, you've already tried the approach where you're just going to ask them and share with them and see, can you stop for a day, whatever. I think there's times where people do have to get to this bottom, wherever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get there, I can almost 100% guarantee that you've been speaking into their lives for all this time. They're going to reach out to you and say, okay, now this has happened, because it will. Because if the addiction is so enthralled with them, because I can pray about it, I can work with that person with or without them, and I just keep praying. Sometimes it really truly is what's it going to take? What is there, whatever it's going to take moment. And for me, that might be just prayer.
Mm-hmm.
To actually just be praying for them. I've muscle tested. I have asked and seen, where this person might be. And I get sometimes that it really has to get to that, whatever it's going to take moment. Maybe that's an accident. Maybe it's a jail sentence. I don't know. But there is a time where these people they're at that breaking point. And it would be the same as if somebody was going to do intervention with somebody and, have that sit down with all the family members and the loved ones and saying, hey, we love you so much. And, we really want what's best for you. And, we want to help you. If they're not going to hear you, they're not going to hear you.
Exactly.
So you have to work with the ones that are willing to hear you. Yeah. And those are the ones right now that I feel like Amanda and I are wanting to at least reach all of those. If you're willing to listen, you could be in active addiction. You could be, maybe you've been dabbling with it for a while as far as your healing, etc. But as long as you're willing to at least hear, those are the ones that we can work with. The rest, unfortunately, it's not like I ever give up on them. But there is a time where you have to wait till their ears are ready to hear and their eyes are ready to see. And that's the type of a prayer that I pray for those people.
Yeah.
The other thing with that is we've learned some other modalities as well, with like the full court of atonement through Amy Jo Ellis. And she does full court of atonements where you put the soul, you kind of take the soul to court and you bring in the guides and their angels, and you bring in like the family members, you bring in everybody. So it's not in like this physical 3D experience that we're having now. You're bringing in the actual soul, and you're just saying, hey, whatever needs to happen here, we need some intervention here, you know. And so then you just put them in there, and whatever needs to be hashed out gets hashed out. And there's different things that we say to do that, and how we can heal lineages and things like that. And then also there's times, and I know all of us here, you know, we know how to soul chat, and sometimes you can do soul chats with their higher self. So it's not you actually talking, but you can plant seeds. You can do a soul chat, and then hopefully whatever that comes out, maybe you're planting seeds in the soul. So then the soul can then in turn let the physical body catch up, and then want to seek that help as well. So there's little tricks sometimes to go above their head.
I think you brought out a really big point, though, Amanda, when you're saying a lot of times the healing doesn't happen here in the 3D. It's happening in the 5D, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the more that we can take advantage of that, I think the faster and the clearer we become, and the faster the healing can take place as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know that I've actually had times where I've taken it to a different level in the spirit realm. And like I said, sometimes there's a person that ends up speaking into that person's life that I didn't plan on it, but it was put in that path so that eventually, you know, they are at least willing to listen at that point. So there's definitely things you can be doing at all times. You know, I never give up on even the hardest cases, because there's some out there.
There are some.
Yeah,
for sure.
So I saw this study with rats, and they did the study where they had rats that were alone in cages, and they gave them cocaine, and the rats became addicted to cocaine. And then they put these other rats all together, like in this like rat like utopia, basically, where they had like really good food and treats, and they were interacting with each other. So they were like super happy. Like basically they had like anything a rat would like want to have. And then they gave those rats cocaine, and they didn't want it.
I think I saw that same one, Colette.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, like, knowing that, how does that play into how you help people?
It's like what I was talking to Amanda about with that scenario. So if you're going to isolate yourself and you have an addiction, that addiction will just then get stronger and stronger and stronger. I've heard a lot of people that I talk to, they're like, well, you don't understand. You know, I live in this area and it's just loaded with drugs. And I go, but I live there too. I mean, you could bring up that same point. I live there too. I'm not on drugs. So they don't really know what to say about that, but it's because of your isolation, and then the addiction can, you know, just actually come in and take over. When you have like the scenario where the rats are, you know, having their fun things to do, so you're creative, you keep your mind busy, you're doing I don't know, crafts or things that are important to you in your life. You have friends, you have family, and there's different things that you spend your time doing. Maybe you have a career, you're working on stuff. Maybe you work on blueprints, you know, and you have all these different things that you're working on in your life. And honestly, that is exactly, not to detour from this, but that is exactly what I was telling my nephew before he passed away, is that's what I want to do with you. I want to get a blueprint for every area of your life, because you could see that there was never any wins. So the addiction was always going to win. But if he could get away from that, like these, you know, rats that are having their fun time world and they don't care about it. It's not important anymore at that point. So I think helping people to really do that, and really gearing them towards those different places where you can, you know, work on those areas of what all of us are familiar with Think and Grow Rich, as far as blueprints in your life. I mean, they have goals and aspirations. They just haven't had a chance to bring them forth. You know,
well, not only that,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, not only that, a lot of people have a hard time, and this is reprogramming the subconscious again. They have a hard time looking at the wins because they come from a place of lack, and so they're just like, I don't have, I don't have, I don't have, and they have a hard time switching that perception of, well, what do I have, and what were the wins I had? So maybe you're heavily into drugs or alcohol. Maybe you drink a bunch per day, and then each day the intake is declining. Well, but somebody who is looking up and say, well, but you're still an addict, you're still drinking, you haven't stopped yet, right? But they're slowly declining their intake. So that is a win. If you go from 80 ounces of beer a day to maybe 60, that's a good win, right? But if you just keep on doing that and keep on getting that momentum, it changes. So I was talking to someone a couple days ago, and they were telling me all the stuff they didn't have. I said, well, tell me some of your wins. And they couldn't tell me. And I said, well, there has to be something in there. And I mean, we found a couple, but if your brain isn't programmed to look for those wins, it's hard. And I know when we first started doing our blueprints, it was hard for us to find the wins because our brain just was not accustomed to do those things. And so we did have to reprogram our whole subconscious. And so now for all of us, it's so easy to look for the wins. Right. But somebody that doesn't know how, that's something that really does need to be developed and exercised every day.
And it's something that's easy to do. I mean, it really is. Working with somebody in that manner, it's fun to do. It's fun to hear what they want to do, and really like creating that visual for them, that they've never explored. I remember talking to a few people, well, I just wish I had a car. Well, what kind of a car? What does that car look like? I mean, exploring that a little bit with them. They've never even allowed their mind to go there. And having their own home and, a job that they may think would be perfect. It might not be perfect, for a time, but maybe it will be perfect for them here in the very near future. So it's just really exciting to be able to help them get a good visual on what life could look like for them. And then letting them to reiterate that by, saying it out loud to themselves, kind of like what we've always done, as far as with our blueprints and whatnot. But yeah, there's so many things that we've done as a collective group that I think is really exciting to be able to share with anybody that has an addiction.
What are some things that you are excited about with our new YouTube channel?
I'm excited just to be able to be in that position where you can interview somebody and just see where it leads. I mean, it's the only real way that you can learn how to help people. I mean, I like getting into the thick of the thick. Let's do it, So I'm super excited about it, just see what happens. Yeah, it's exciting.
I'm excited because I keep getting messages from people. I made a post today on Facebook, and I already have people on our calendar that wants to participate. So that's exciting. That's really exciting. So I'm excited to see what the possibility is and what can grow from this for creating this space for people to come and share. So I'm really excited for that.
Well, and there's a lot of people that deal with it. So I think it can grow very quickly. Probably quicker than you and I are ever going to be able to handle them.
I know. Gosh, I think so too.
Yeah.
And just one last thing, what kind of addiction, like what kind of things are people addicted to? Because I know most people think like, oh, I'm not on meth or I'm not doing coke or something, right. But I know there's lots of addictions. So do you want to just talk a little bit about the different kinds of addictions that you guys help with?
Yeah. So really anything. So anything that you're obsessive with can be considered as an addiction. So obviously we think about drugs, the meth, the heroin, those kind of things. You're like, oh my gosh, that's addiction. But you have alcohol that's an addiction. You have pornography that's addiction. You have food that's an addiction. You have workaholics, people that, cannot do anything other than work, you know, and their life, the rest of the world around them just, you know, can't even get into their life. So there's so many different areas that I think that you could, those are just the ones that pop off the top of my head. There's even exercise, but I
I was going to say that.
There is, but the thing is that I've talked to people about that, and they're like, I go, but wouldn't you rather have the addiction? If you're going to go into that area and put your all into it, I want to do it in maybe my health. I want to do it maybe in exercise where I'm doing something good for myself and not detrimental to my body.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, with exercise, there's to a point where, I mean, I was watching that show Extreme Addictions, and
Yeah.
the one guy had an addiction to running, like all the time. Like, even though the doctors are saying if you keep running, like your knees are gonna let go, he would do like a 24-hour race and run like 100 miles. And then he would come home, he would sleep for like 2 or 3 hours, and then he'd go out running again for like another 100 miles. Like, it was just nonstop, right? That's a heavy addiction where you just can't stop. You know, addiction to exercise, I mean, if you're working out every day, that's not necessarily a bad thing if it's for an hour or two. And every once in a while, when you say, hey, listen, I just need a break today, I don't know if that's an addiction. But, you know, when I was younger, I used to be addicted to video games. Like you, I would play video games for days straight without sleeping. And I couldn't stop. And then I realized it, and I was able to say, listen, I have to not play video games because I get so addicted to it. And I do nothing but play that video game until I beat it, until it's over.
Well,
right?
Facebook is an addiction. People get on Facebook and they can't get off it, and it's 4 hours later, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I've just spent 4 hours looking at this computer all day long." So, I think when it has the effect on your health in general, you know, where you're not getting anything done, or you're exercising so much that now you know, lost so much weight, that kind of a thing. I think anything like that, if it's detrimental to your health at some point, I think you've crossed the line. Yeah.
Wonderful. Anybody have any last questions for Stephanie? We kept you way longer than I told you we would.
Well, thank you. I'm glad we had much to talk about. I appreciate
I
you
give
guys.
you credit for doing such good work, because I mean, in some ways it must be very frustrating when you're working with someone and they just can't break it, you know.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you must have a lot of patience.
I've
I have
been
one
told
friend who's a guy, this guy told me he drank like a fish throughout his younger years, right into his 40s, I think. And then he went to Alcoholics Anonymous, but he said he went to bed one night and he just, I guess he surrendered. He said, I just can't live like this anymore. And he's never touched a drop of alcohol since.
And that is so, I've heard of people just like that, Rebecca. And you wish that they all could have that same exact, you know, experience to be able to be done with it, because my gosh, we wouldn't have addiction in a beautiful world, but it's not. There's just so many things. And I think, and that might be one of those whatever it takes moment type thing for this person, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I think the good thing about all of this is that as the vibration of this planet is shifting, I think less and less people are becoming addicted, and less people that are addicted are starting to snap out of it. They're starting to see through that veil that's been put in front of them, and they're not as addicted as much. It doesn't mean that there are still thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that need help and really want help for it. It means that it's starting to change, and you know, we're in a chaotic time. With chaotic times, it really leads to biggest opportunities. And I think, you know, what you and Amanda are doing with your YouTube channel and getting this thing off the ground and going, I told Amanda, like, I think it's the best idea that anyone could have. And once you get a few people on there and you start just, you know, helping people, whether it's curing them or not, but just giving them a glimmer of hope, it's such a game changer. And it's gonna, you know, move this planet even to a higher vibration, because you look at these people when they're addicted, their vibration is so low that it brings it down. And if we're just able to raise it up just a little bit, and then just a little bit, and just a little bit, that's the tipping point. That's the thing that changes it really, really quick.
Yep. Hope
Sure.
on hope on hope on hope. And then pretty soon they break free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Stephanie, we appreciate you and
Thank you.
what you two are both doing. It's just absolutely special, and it's needed and it's wanted. And I think you guys are going to start an addiction revolution on, how to fix it. And people are going to be searching for both of you on YouTube. And I think it's going to be extremely successful. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. I really do believe that. And it's fantastic. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, you guys.
So Stephanie and I have committed to going live every Thursday between 4 and 5 or 5 and 6. We're just trying to work out the details right now with the holiday schedule. But you can find us on Healing with Amanda and Stephanie on YouTube, and then also Healing with Amanda and Stephanie on Facebook. We're going to have our own Facebook group so that people can just add people to that. So if you know anybody that is in addiction, in recovery, or people whose lives have been affected by addiction, you can go to both of those platforms and like and subscribe. We're going to go live, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can see when we do go live, and you can kind of see the work that we do. It's not going to be the same every week. It's going to be different. Everybody's different. So
Yeah.
we really go based upon intuition, divine downloads, and it's going to be very unique each time. So it's not the same thing, over and over again. So
That will be the exciting part, actually.
Yeah,
Because
we
it'll
never
be
know.
so different every time. And I believe we're also going to be interviewing even those, the parents as well, or family members, because everybody's affected by that, and everybody has to, try to get through their life with that. So there's a lot to talk about.
For sure. The other thing I wanted to say quickly before we log off is when parents heal themselves, they also in turn heal their children. And I have been doing so much healing on myself so I can heal my children and my grandchildren and future generations to come. It starts with us. So even if you do have a loved one, I'm speaking to people right now that may have a loved one that is in addiction, start with yourself. Start with yourself, because as you're healing yourself, it's a ripple effect. You're healing ancestors, you're healing children, grandchildren, generations to come. And so what is it? They say heal thyself, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the Bible. So it's really important to start with yourself. If you can't get through to your person or your loved one who may be in addiction, just start with you.
What about the other way around? Is it possible to, like in my situation where my dad's an alcoholic, and is it possible to, for that to affect me in some way without me knowing it? Or have I been able to, I don't want to say block it, but just release that energy, that negative energy that's been there? Because I feel like I have. If I have 2 beers a year now, that's probably excessive for me.
Mm-hmm. It all depends, because like we said, addiction is addiction, and if it's been passed down, you may have that addiction gene or that addiction energy within you, based upon the different outlets, like your addiction to video games and things like that. But you and I have worked really a lot together, and Stephanie, and we put you on our addiction protocol. So that itself, we released that. We've done a lot of stuff. So I think for you, we'd probably muscle test and ask if there's anything else that we need to release to make sure that that's gone.
I think there's also, and I know you guys are wanting to jump off here, but there are plenty of family members where you have like a family and you have some people that are in addiction, maybe one parent, maybe they have 3 children, and 2 of them take that up, but the other one did not. So I really feel like it's a little bit on what work you do yourself. Maybe you don't even realize how much work you've done yourself, but I really feel like it is, because I've been in that same situation and I didn't pick that up. Now, does that mean that, I haven't had to work in other areas of my life that I thought were maybe more of addictive type, feeling within myself? Yeah, I probably have, but not in those type of areas. But yeah, I think that it can definitely be that way.
Okay.
where it affects one and not the other.
Cool. Awesome.
Well, I think you bring up like a good point though, right? Because like my mom was addicted to a lot of things, but I'm not addicted to things she's addicted to. I'm addicted to different things.
Right.
So, but I didn't even like realize I was addicted to things. You know, so a lot of times like I have like a sugar addiction that like I released, well, I'm working on releasing. But yeah, so it's like sometimes we don't even know we have it because it's normal. Like I'm not on drugs, right? So I'm okay.
Right.
Well, and people actually
So-
don't even think that food, I mean, a lot of people do, but there's plenty of people that don't think like, well, food can't be an addiction because you got to have it. Well, it is if you eat too much of it and now you're, binge eating and doing things like that. So it definitely can be. But yeah, it's interesting, those different lines of what it is. Smoking, obviously, is an addiction for people, and yet people,
Well, people don't think it is because it's legal. They'll say, "Oh, I smoke because it's legal. It's not an addiction," or "Oh, I drink because like it's legal." Now we have marijuana legal, so they don't look at it as a big deal.
Yeah, well, we know that it is. It definitely is.
We know that they all are.
Changes the way people think about it, and it's something that they're constantly thinking about in their heads. I mean, the addiction takes over. I mean, your thoughts are just being controlled by this. So, and I definitely know what that feels like. When you have those thoughts that you're constantly thinking about something. So you want to make sure you have really, really good thoughts all the time.
All the time.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Stephanie, for being here with us
You're
today,
welcome.
and especially on such short notice. We appreciate you. She actually rearranged her schedule to be with us tonight, so I really, really appreciate that. And again, you guys, if you haven't liked and subscribed to this channel, Lightworkers Secret to Success, please, please, please do so. We interview people every Monday live, different healers, different lightworkers, different authors, people that are trying to make the world a better place. Also on Fridays, we do a live, just kind of an open talk. I'm not sure what we're going to be talking about this Friday, but stay tuned. It's going to be something amazing.